Melanie, a lot happening this hour. Does Speaker Johnson think he has the votes? And who's going to this White House meeting?
Yeah, so they don't have the votes in this current moment. I think the GOP leadership recognizes that. If past is prologue, though, eventually the thinking is that all of these members are going to fall in line, but not without a little arm twisting first. And so that is why you're seeing a very intense all-out whip effort underway in this current moment. There are multiple groups of Republicans heading to the White House today. That includes Freedom Caucus members, conservative hardliners, as well as more moderate centrist-leaning Republicans who have deep concerns about the cuts to Medicaid and food stamps and the impacts on rural hospitals. So a really wide mix of concerns, which does make this a little bit more challenging for the leadership as they try to proceed. Meanwhile, Speaker Mike Johnson also huddling with the Freedom Caucus earlier this morning off campus. He is really trying to get this done, though, as soon as today in order to meet that self-imposed July 4th deadline. But hardliners say there's no reason they need to rush through this process. Just take a listen.
I'll vote against it here, and I'll vote against it on the floor. I think we're going to go back to the drawing table. It is my hope we'll go back to the drawing table and get very close to what we sent the Senate, because instead of each individual senator getting a goodie bag and sacrificing the health of this country is an abomination to, again, the founders and the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence.
Now, the conundrum for the GOP leadership here is that they do not want to change the Senate product. The reason for that is because that would completely derail their timeline if they were to make any changes, even, so much as a punctuation change in the bill over here in the House. It would have to go all the way back to the Senate and get approval there. So what the GOP leadership is really trying to do is see if there's anything else they can say or give to members in order to get them to yes. Are there other side deals? Are there other assurances? There's also talk already of doing another reconciliation bill later down the line. What can leadership give to these members to get to yes? Ultimately, like I said, the thinking, though, is that most of these members are not going to want to be the ones to stand in the way of Trump's agenda. He's also threatened to primary some of the members who did threaten to vote against this bill. All of those dynamics going to be at play today as we watch these vote counts very closely.
So, Eli, what is the White House message to these Republican holdouts? And just how confident is the administration that this bill will land on the president's desk by Friday?
I think they're fairly confident that it will get there, whether that's by Friday or whether that deadline slips. The president has said, look, if it's not Friday, he's left room for this to slip a little bit, even though they are pushing to get it there by this July 4th deadline that the president has set out a while back. But this is really his moment, right? This is the art of the deal president being asked to close. And the leverage that the president has, his message, he posted on social media earlier that this is about growth and growing the economy. He's messaging this in broad strokes. He's not trying to defend the impact on people's health care who would lose health care because of this bill. He's not defending the particulars. He's just saying that the U.S. is a hot country. This is why we're growing the economy. We're digging out of the rut that Joe Biden put us in. And that is sort of the overarching message. And now President Trump is going to meet with all kinds of Republican House members today at the White House. His entire schedule has been cleared for these kinds of meetings. And really, the leverage that he has is fear. He has instilled fear in pretty much every Republican that if they cross him, they will pay a political price. If they want to hold on to their seats, they will swallow whatever bitter pill they have to and get this bill to his desk. That is sort of the general view at the White House, and it has been proven true. We've seen whether it's Senator Thom Tillis announcing that he was retiring before voting against the bill in the Senate. We don't know what Representative Don Bacon, moderate from Nebraska, is going to do, but he announced his retirement a few days ago. It's clear at this point that the Republicans in Congress are Trump Republicans. There are really no mavericks left in either the House or the Senate. I mean, to see Senator Murkowski vote yes on this was truly shocking to a lot of people. And I think, the calculation the White House is making is that whatever people's concerns about the particulars, ultimately, as Melanie said, they are not going to want to be the ones to prevent this major legislative achievement from getting to the president's desk because they know they'll pay a price. But obviously, in the current dynamic, our colleagues on the Hill tell us that, look, there are a lot of no votes right now, and if they get to a vote and they can afford to lose 4. If there are 4 no votes, there are going to be a lot more than that because there are a lot more people with concerns who plan to vote against this initially if it is clear that it is not going to pass.
Yeah, I mean, our reporting is that there are at least a dozen plus Republicans who at least have expressed some reticence for what is in this Senate bill that now is in the House. And we see that debate happening live, those pictures there in the corner with Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi currently talking. Eli Stokols, I know you have to bounce in order to continue your reporting. Thanks for offering us those insights that you brought us. Congressman Dent, you have Congressman Chip Roy, who said the odds that this bill passes are, quote, a hell of a lot lower than they were even 48 hours ago or 72 hours ago. You heard from Republican Congressman Ralph Norman slamming the Senate changes to this bill as unconscionable. We just discussed how Don Bacon is no longer seeking re-election, so maybe that frees him up to vote against it if he feels strongly. Do you think this deal is going to get done?
I think a deal will get done. I'm not saying this deal will get done. By the way, the whipping sessions or the smackdown sessions are about to begin in the White House. Those on the hard right who are upset about the deficit, I suspect many of them will melt or cave to presidential pressure. I think the real challenge on this bill is going to be from Republicans who represent swing districts who've made strong statements about not cutting Medicaid. Presidential threats and bullying may not work as well there. Because those members are facing real general election problems. Their issues aren't the primary. And by the way, in 2017, I dealt with these smackdown sessions. I was in the White House at the time of the Obamacare repeal replace debate. And, the president got really angry with me. I voted against the bill. John McCain helped tank it then in the Senate, and it never passed. So some of us were able to stand up then. And I think today there are some in the House who are going to really balk at these Medicaid changes, among some other things. And they're going to be harder to persuade. We'll see what happens. Maybe Trump gets his way, but they're going to have to do a lot of really serious arm twisting and threats to get this thing over the finish line.
Senator Tester, as a Democrat who used to represent a red state, who do you see as the winners and the losers of this bill?
I don't think they're the winners are the uber rich. They get big tax breaks. The losers are folks that need help with food security, the folks that need access to health care. Many of those folks are in the reddest parts of this country. And I think that when you start cutting health care, especially in rural America, when it's gone forever. And I think a lot of the folks in the House and the Senate know that represent those rural districts. And I think that's where there's a lot of heartburn about this. The food security issue is another one. When you've got the poorest of the poor people that get food taken out of their mouths, literally, for tax breaks for the uber rich, it doesn't go well. And I think the reason you're seeing so much heartburn over this bill is, and it might be for different reasons, but the first congressman you had on said they need to take it back and rework it. That's exactly what needs to happen. This is not a good piece of legislation. It's not a good bill. And I will tell you that motivation by fear is really a bad motivation. And hopefully the folks in the House and the Senate have the kind of backbone that Congressman Dent had and able to stand up and say, look, I'm here to represent my district, not the president of the United States. And my district doesn't like this bill. And I'm voting no until it's changed so it works for us.
Melanie, Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski was in many ways the deciding vote that got this through the Senate. But then in her statement afterwards, she said she hopes the House makes more changes. Should we expect more changes?
There is zero indication at this point that the GOP leadership in the House is planning to change this bill. And if anything, if they were to change it, it would likely get more conservative, not less conservative in the way that Lisa Murkowski would have liked. So it just led to a pretty remarkable admission from the senator from Alaska there, and a really remarkable exchange with our Ryan Nobles, with her admitting that she did not like the bill, that she indeed not only voted for, but was responsible for putting it over the finish line. Just take a listen.
Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests. But I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are not going to be advantaged by this bill. I don't like that.
So a lot of senators and Republicans in the House wrestling with this consequential decision. Murkowski said it was the toughest decision she's had to make in her entire political career. I'm assuming there's a lot of other people who are really weighing this decision. We'll see how it all shakes out, hopefully in the next 24 to 48 hours here on Capitol Hill.
Senator, here's more from Murkowski's statement. Quote, "This was the hardest votes I have had to take during my time in the Senate. Let's not kid ourselves. This has been an awful process, a frantic rush to meet an artificial deadline that has tested every limit of this institution." So she didn't like the process. She isn't satisfied with the outcome in terms of the policy. What do you make of her voting yes?
Well, I don't know. That's a better question for Lisa. Lisa is a quality senator, and she put herself in a bad situation being the deciding vote. I will tell you, she's absolutely right. This is an artificial deadline. The tax breaks from the bill that was passed back in 2017 don't run out till the end of the year. So what's magic about July 4th? It's not like the Republicans are going to go out and do a bunch of town hall meetings. They don't do town hall meetings anymore, very few and far between. So I don't get it. I don't get it why the Congress doesn't take the time to go out and make a bill that really works for America's families, because this one doesn't. And it doesn't work for rural America. It probably doesn't work for urban America either, quite frankly. And so I don't know. I don't know why Lisa ended up voting yes for this bill. I think she understood that it wasn't a good bill, but maybe fear is what was the motivating factor here. I don't know. I can't speak for Lisa, but the bottom line is, whether it's Lisa Murkowski that says it, or Tom Tillis that says it, or Hawley that says it, or anybody else, this is a bad piece of legislation. And Congress could have done a lot better if they'd just taken the time and done it right and listened to the people that are on the ground.